A millionaire agrees to marry a humble waitress to honor his dying mother's final wish, thinking it's just a temporary arrangement. But as their lives intertwine, her genuine kindness and warmth transform his heart. What begins as an obligation turns into a journey of love, growth, and unexpected happiness, teaching him the true meaning of family and compassion. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow through the windows of the private hospital room. Eleanor Grant, once a formidable presence in the world of business and philanthropy, now lay in her bed, her body frail but her spirit still remarkably strong. The soft hum of the machines monitoring her vitals was a constant reminder of the limited time she had left. Her son, Jacob Grant, sat beside her. Dressed in a sharp navy suit, his appearance exuded success and confidence. Yet, in this moment, he looked vulnerable, his carefully constructed facade cracking as he watched his mother battle the inevitable. He held her hand, the same hand that had guided him through life's challenges, and tried to steady his own racing thoughts. Eleanor's voice, though faint, carried the authority Jacob had known his entire life. "Jacob," she began, her tone soft but commanding, "there's something important I need to ask of you." Jacob's heart sank. He had always known this day would come, but he wasn't ready. "Mother, don't talk like that. You're going to be fine," he said, his voice trembling slightly. Eleanor gave a weak chuckle, her emerald eyes sparkling with the wisdom of someone who had lived a full life. "Oh, Jacob, you've always been a terrible liar. We both know the truth. My time is near, and I've made peace with that. But before I go, there's something I need you to promise me." Jacob leaned in closer, his grip on her hand tightening. "Anything, Mother. Just tell me." She took a deep breath as if gathering the strength to say what needed to be said. "I want you to get married." Jacob blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "Married? Mother, Eleanor cut him off with a look that could silence even the most defiant of men. "Listen to me, Jacob. You've spent your life building an empire, chasing success, and surrounding yourself with people who don't truly care about you. What happens when it's all gone? When the money, the power, the accolades fade away? Who will be there for you then?" Jacob had no answer. His life had been a whirlwind of business deals, social events, and fleeting relationships. The thought of slowing down, of building something meaningful, was foreign to him. "I've already found someone," Eleanor continued, her voice growing softer. "Her name is Lily. She works at a small cafe downtown. I met her when you were away on a business trip. She's kind, genuine, and has a heart bigger than anyone I've ever met. She reminds me of what's good in this world." Jacob's jaw tightened. "Mother, you can't be serious. You want me to marry someone I've never even met?" Eleanor's expression softened, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. "Sometimes, Jacob, life isn't about what makes sense. It's about taking a chance. Lily may not come from our world, but she has something far more valuable: compassion, honesty, and the ability to see the good in others. Promise me you'll give her a chance." Jacob felt a lump form in his throat. This wasn't just a wish. It was a plea from a mother who had given him everything. "I promise," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Eleanor's eyes glistened with tears as she smiled. "Thank you, Jacob. You won't regret it." As he sat by her side, Jacob's mind raced. He had made a promise, but the reality of fulfilling it felt impossible. How could he marry a stranger? And yet, deep down, he knew he would honor his mother's final wish, no matter how daunting it seemed. The following day, Jacob found himself standing in front of Lily's cafe. The quaint establishment, nestled on a quiet street corner, was worlds apart from the glitzy high-rises and sleek boardrooms he was accustomed to. A small bell jingled as he pushed open the door, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods wafting toward him. The sound of quiet chatter and the clinking of cups filled the air, a stark contrast to the cacophony of his high-powered world. Behind the counter stood Lily. Her auburn hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and her face bore a natural beauty that needed no embellishment. She moved with an ease that suggested she belonged here, her smile lighting up the room as she greeted each customer. Jacob hesitated for a moment, observing her. This was the woman his mother spoke so highly of. She seemed ordinary. Lily glanced up and caught his gaze. Her smile faltered for a second, replaced by a look of curiosity. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice warm but cautious. Jacob stepped forward, suddenly aware of how out of place he looked in his tailored suit. "You're Lily, right?" he asked, his tone more abrupt than he intended. "That's me," she replied, tilting her head slightly. "And you are?" "I'm Jacob Grant." Her eyes widened slightly in recognition. "Oh, you're Eleanor's son. She talked about you often." Jacob nodded, his stomach knotting. "Yes, well, my mother thought very highly of you. She made a request before she passed." Lily's expression softened, her hands stilling on the counter. "I'm so sorry for your loss. She was such a lovely woman. What was her request?" Jacob cleared his throat, his nerves threatening to get the better of him. "She wanted me to marry you." The cafe fell silent. Lily stared at him, her brows knitting together in disbelief. "I'm sorry. What?" Jacob shifted uncomfortably under her gaze. "I know it sounds ridiculous, but it was her dying wish. She believed you were the kind of person who could help me see the world differently." Lily blinked as if waiting for him to say he was joking. When he didn't, she let out a nervous laugh. "You're serious? She wanted us to get married? We don't even know each other." Jacob sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Trust me, I know how absurd it sounds, but my mother was convinced you were special, and I made a promise to her. I understand if you want to say no." Lily leaned against the counter, her mind racing. She had liked Eleanor immensely, the older woman's kindness and wit leaving a lasting impression on her. But this was something else entirely. "Mr. Grant, I don't know what to say. I'm just a waitress. You're a billionaire." Jacob raised an eyebrow. "And? My mother didn't care about that, and frankly, neither do I. This isn't about status or appearances. It's about fulfilling her wish." Lily studied him, trying to read the man in front of her. He seemed guarded, his posture stiff and his tone clipped, but there was a vulnerability in his eyes that made her pause. "What would this marriage entail?" she asked cautiously. Jacob straightened, sensing her hesitation. "It doesn't have to be permanent. We could consider it an arrangement, at least initially. No pressure, no expectations. If it doesn't work out, we can part ways." Lily frowned, the weight of the situation pressing down on her. On one hand, this was utterly insane. On the other, there was something about Eleanor's belief in her that made her want to at least consider it. "Can I have some time to think about it?" she asked finally. Jacob nodded. "Of course, take as much time as you need." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, placing it on the counter. "If you decide to move forward, call me. I'll respect whatever decision you make." With that, he turned and left the cafe, the bell jingling softly behind him. Lily stared after him, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She glanced at the business card, the weight of the choice ahead settling heavily on her shoulders. For the rest of the day, Lily moved through her shifts on autopilot, replaying the conversation in her mind. Could she really do this? Was she ready to upend her life for a man she barely knew? Yet, the thought of Eleanor's trust in her lingered, planting a seed of curiosity and perhaps even hope. Lily spent the next few days mulling over Jacob's proposal. Every spare moment was consumed with questions. Could she trust this man she barely knew? Was she prepared to step into a world that seemed so far removed from her own? And perhaps most pressing, could she live with herself if she ignored Eleanor's final wish? Sitting in her small apartment, Lily stared at the business card on her coffee table. The elegant font spelled out Jacob Grant, alongside a phone number and email address. It felt surreal. Her life was simple, routine, and predictable. This proposal threatened to upend everything she had ever known. Her best friend, Mia, was less than subtle about her opinion when Lily told her about the situation. "Wait, let me get this straight," Mia said, her eyes wide with disbelief. "This billionaire guy wants to marry you because his mom thought you were special." "Basically," Lily replied, twisting her fingers nervously. "And you're actually considering it?" Lily sighed. "Mia, it's not just about him. It's about Eleanor. She believed in me, saw something in me I didn't even see in myself. I don't know if I can just ignore that." Mia shook her head, pacing the small living room. "Lily, this is crazy. Like movie-level crazy. You're talking about marrying someone you don't even know. What if he's a total jerk? Or worse?" Lily couldn't help but smile at her friend's protective nature. He didn't seem like a jerk. Awkward, yes, but he was sincere, and it's not like he's asking for a real marriage, at least not yet. Mia stopped pacing, crossing her arms. "And what about you? What do you get out of this? Because if it's just to honor Eleanor, that's not enough. You have to think about your future, too." Lily nodded, her friend's words hitting home. I know, Mia. That's why I'm taking my time to decide. I need to figure out what feels right. Over the next few days, Lily revisited her conversations with Eleanor in her mind. The older woman had always spoken so fondly of Jacob despite his flaws. He's brilliant, but he's lost his way, Eleanor had said once. He needs someone to remind him what's really important. Was that someone supposed to be her? The turning point came during one of her evening shifts at the cafe. As she was clearing a table, an elderly customer called her over. Excuse me, dear, the woman said, her eyes kind. I just wanted to say how lovely you are. The world needs more people like you. Lily smiled, her heart warming at the unexpected compliment. Thank you, that's very kind of you to say. As she walked back to the counter, the woman's words lingered. It was a small moment, but it reminded her of the impact kindness could have. Maybe, just maybe, she could make a difference in Jacob's life, just as Eleanor had believed. That night, Lily made her decision. She pulled out her phone, her hands trembling slightly as she dialed the number on the business card. The line rang twice before Jacob's voice answered, calm and professional. Jacob Grant. Hi, Mr. Grant, it's Lily, she said, her voice steady despite the nerves coursing through her. I've thought about your proposal and I'm willing to give it a try. There was a brief pause before Jacob responded. Thank you, Lily. I know this isn't an easy decision, and I appreciate your willingness to honor my mother's wish. When can we meet to discuss the details? They agreed to meet the next day at a quiet restaurant. As Lily hung up, she took a deep breath, the weight of her choice settling in. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she was determined to face it with an open heart. The meeting at the restaurant was both formal and awkward. Jacob had rented a private room to ensure their conversation remained discreet. The table was elegantly set, with a bouquet of lilies in the center, a small but thoughtful gesture that caught Lily off guard. Jacob stood as Lily entered, his usual stoic demeanor softening into what might have been a smile. Lily, thank you for coming. She nodded, taking the seat he offered. Thank you for everything. I didn't expect this kind of setup. Jacob cleared his throat, slightly flustered. I wanted this to feel professional. Lily suppressed a laugh, amused by his attempt to approach their arrangement like a business transaction. Well, it's definitely that. Over the course of the meal, they discussed the terms of their marriage. Jacob was meticulous, laying out everything with the precision of a contract negotiation. He assured her that the arrangement would be temporary, just long enough to honor Eleanor's wish. There will be no expectations beyond what you're comfortable with, Jacob said, his tone serious. We'll have separate living spaces in the house. Your privacy will be respected. Lily listened carefully, her initial nervousness easing as she realized how much thought Jacob had put into making her feel secure. And what about the public? She asked. I imagine people will have questions. Jacob nodded. We'll keep a low profile as much as possible. When we do appear in public, we'll present as a united front, but I won't ask you to change who you are. His words, though practical, carried an unexpected warmth. Lily felt a flicker of hope that this arrangement might not be as daunting as she'd feared. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Lily moved into Jacob's estate, a sprawling mansion that felt more like a museum than a home. It was grand and opulent, but also cold and uninviting. The staff, though polite, kept their distance, as if unsure how to treat her. Lily quickly found herself feeling out of place. She was used to the chatter of the cafe, the comfort of her modest apartment. The mansion's silence was oppressive, the vast halls echoing with her footsteps. Jacob, true to his word, respected her space. He spent most of his time working in his home office, leaving Lily to explore the estate on her own. Despite their proximity, their interactions were limited to brief conversations during meals or the occasional passing in the hallway. One evening, as Lily wandered through the library, she stumbled upon a photo album tucked away on a lower shelf. She hesitated before opening it, unsure if it was her place to intrude, but curiosity won out. The album was filled with pictures of Jacob as a child, his face bright with a joy she hadn't seen in him since they'd met. There were photos of him and Eleanor at various landmarks, their bond evident in their smiles. It was a side of Jacob she hadn't imagined, and it made her wonder what had happened to the boy in those pictures. The next morning, Lily decided to take a step toward bridging the gap between them. She knocked on the door of Jacob's office, waiting for his permission before entering. Lily, he said, surprised to see her. Is everything all right? She nodded, stepping inside. I was exploring the library last night and found an old photo album. You and Eleanor looked so happy. Jacob's expression softened, a rare glimpse of vulnerability crossing his face. Those were good times, he said quietly, before life got complicated. Lily hesitated before speaking. Jacob, I know this is just an arrangement, but we're living under the same roof. Maybe we could, I don't know, get to know each other a little better? Jacob looked at her, his guarded demeanor wavering. You're right. This house is big enough to feel like a fortress. Maybe a little conversation wouldn't hurt. It was a small step, but it was the beginning of a shift in their dynamic. Over the coming days, Lily and Jacob began spending more time together. Their conversations were tentative at first, but as they shared stories of their pasts, they started to find common ground. Lily talked about her childhood, her struggles to make ends meet, and her dreams of one day opening her own cafe. Jacob listened intently, his respect for her growing with each word. In turn, he shared stories of his own, a mix of successes and regrets that painted a more human picture of the man Lily had agreed to marry. Their evenings together became a routine, and for the first time, the mansion felt less like a museum and more like a home. Lily began to see glimpses of the man Eleanor had described, a man who was capable of kindness, even if he didn't always show it. And though neither of them would admit it, they both found themselves looking forward to those moments of connection. The transformation within the mansion was gradual, but undeniable. What had started as a cold, transactional arrangement was beginning to thaw. Lily's presence brought a sense of warmth and light into Jacob's otherwise rigid and structured life, and Jacob's patience and growing respect for Lily allowed her to feel more comfortable in an environment that initially felt alien. One evening, after their usual dinner, Jacob surprised Lily by suggesting a walk through the gardens. The estate's grounds were as meticulously maintained as the house, with rows of roses, neatly trimmed hedges, and a stone pathway winding through a grove of trees. The night air was cool and refreshing, and the stars above twinkled like scattered diamonds. I used to come here with my mother when I was a kid, Jacob said as they strolled. She loved gardening, said it was her way of grounding herself. Lily smiled, brushing her fingers along the edge of a blooming rose. It's beautiful. You must have a lot of memories tied to this place. Jacob nodded, his expression thoughtful. I do, but I haven't spent much time out here in years. Work always took precedence. Lily glanced at him, sensing the weight of his words. It must be hard to balance everything. Running a business, managing responsibilities, and trying to honor your mother's wishes. Jacob stopped walking and looked at her, his eyes searching. It is. And sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough, if I'm the son she wanted me to be. The vulnerability in his voice surprised Lily. She placed a hand on his arm, her touch gentle. From everything I've seen and heard, she was incredibly proud of you. And you're doing something selfless for her now, honoring her wish even if it's not easy. Jacob exhaled, a faint smile playing on his lips. You have a way of seeing the best in people, don't you? Lily shrugged, her smile soft. It's not about seeing the best. It's about believing that people are capable of change, of growth. The conversation lingered with Jacob long after their walk ended. Lily's words resonated with him, challenging the cynical worldview he'd carried for so long. He began to see her not just as someone fulfilling his mother's wish, but as a person who brought value to his life in ways he hadn't anticipated. Days turned into weeks, and their bond deepened. Lily, in her unassuming way, began to leave her mark on the household. She befriended the staff, learning their names and listening to their stories. Her kindness and humility were infectious, and soon the mansion felt less like a workplace for the staff and more like a community. Jacob observed these changes with quiet admiration. Lily's ability to connect with people, to make them feel seen and valued, was a stark contrast to his own transactional approach to relationships. It was both humbling and inspiring. One morning, Jacob found Lily in the kitchen, laughing with Margaret, the head housekeeper. The sight stopped him in his tracks. Lily was wearing an apron, her hands dusted with flour as she rolled out dough. Do I even want to know what's happening here? Jacob asked, a teasing note in his voice. Lily looked up, her eyes sparkling with mischief. We're making pie. Margaret was kind enough to teach me her secret recipe. Margaret chuckled, wiping her hands on a towel. She's a quick learner, Mr. Grant. You should join us. Jacob raised an eyebrow. Me in the kitchen? I wouldn't know where to start. Lily smirked, holding out a rolling pin. "There's a first time for everything, Mr. Grant." Against his better judgment, Jacob stepped into the kitchen, rolling up his sleeves. What followed was a chaotic but hilarious attempt at pie making, with flour ending up on Jacob's suit and Lily's laughter ringing through the room. For Jacob, the experience was more than just a fun diversion. It was a reminder of the simple joys he had overlooked in his pursuit of success. And for Lily, it was another glimpse of the man beneath the polished exterior. A man who, when he let his guard down, was capable of so much more than he realized. Their growing connection didn't go unnoticed. Eleanor, despite her declining health, seemed to sense the change in her son. On one of her better days, she invited Lily to join her in the garden, where they sat together on a sunlit bench. "Jacob looks lighter," Eleanor said, her voice soft but firm. "I see it in his eyes. He smiles more now." Lily blushed, unsure of how to respond. "He's a good man, Eleanor. He just carries a lot on his shoulders." Eleanor reached for Lily's hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "And you've helped ease that burden." "I knew you would." Lily felt a lump rise in her throat. "I don't know about that. I'm just trying to do the right thing." Eleanor's gaze was unwavering. "Sometimes doing the right thing is all it takes to change someone's life." As Lily sat there holding Eleanor's hand, she realized that the arrangement had already exceeded her expectations. What began as a way to honor Eleanor's wish was becoming something far more meaningful, a journey of healing and discovery for everyone involved. As weeks passed, the newfound harmony between Jacob and Lily was undeniable. However, life rarely moves forward without challenges. While their bond grew stronger, the cracks in Jacob's past and unresolved emotions began to surface, threatening to unravel everything they had built. One rainy evening, as Jacob sat in his home office, his eyes drifted to a framed photograph of his family. His younger self stood between his parents, a bright-eyed boy full of dreams. The memory was bittersweet, his father's stern demeanor a reminder of the impossible expectations he had always imposed. Jacob's journey into becoming the successful man he was today had been paved with those high expectations, but the cost had been a life defined by isolation. Lily noticed Jacob's quieter demeanor that evening. Over dinner, she tried to engage him, but his responses were clipped, his mind clearly elsewhere. After the meal, Lily found him in the study, staring out of the rain-streaked window, a glass of whiskey in his hand. "Jacob," she said softly, stepping inside. "You've been distant. Is something wrong?" He turned, startled, but his guarded expression quickly returned. "Just tired. A lot on my mind." Lily crossed her arms, leaning against the door frame. "You've been tired before, but this feels different. You don't have to keep everything bottled up, you know." Jacob sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated, Lily. My father wasn't an easy man to live up to. He had a vision of who I should be, and I spent my entire life chasing it. Even now, with everything I've achieved, I wonder if it's enough." Lily stepped closer, her voice gentle. "Your father may have set the bar high, but you've accomplished so much. Maybe it's time to set your own goals instead of living under his shadow." Jacob looked at her, the vulnerability in his eyes unmasked for a moment. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not," Lily admitted, "but it's worth it. And you're not alone in this anymore." Eleanor, too, noticed Jacob's restlessness. On a rare good day, when her strength allowed, she called him to her room. "Sit with me," she said, her voice weaker but filled with maternal warmth. Jacob sat by her bedside, his face a mixture of concern and love. "How are you feeling today, Mom?" Eleanor smiled faintly. "Oh, you know me, Jacob. Stubborn as ever. But today isn't about me. It's about you." Jacob frowned. "What do you mean?" Eleanor's gaze was steady. "I see the weight you carry, Jacob. Your father's expectations, the business, and now this marriage. I know it hasn't been easy for you." Jacob's shoulders slumped, his polished facade cracking. "It's hard, Mom. I want to honor you, to do what you asked, but I feel like I'm losing myself in the process." Eleanor reached out, her frail hand resting on his. "You're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself. Lily has brought out a side of you I haven't seen in years. Don't be afraid to let her in." Her words lingered in Jacob's mind long after he left her room. He knew she was right, but the idea of confronting his own fears and vulnerabilities felt daunting. One evening, as Jacob and Lily sat by the fireplace, Lily decided it was time to open up about her own past. She had sensed Jacob's struggles and hoped that sharing her own story might help him feel less alone. "When I was 12, Lily began, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. My dad left. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat, but it was never enough. We lost our house, and for a while we lived in our car. Jacob looked at her, startled by the revelation. Lily, I had no idea. She shrugged, her gaze distant. It's not something I talk about often, but it shaped me. It taught me to find joy in the little things, to appreciate kindness wherever I found it. Jacob leaned forward, his expression softening. That's why you're so good at connecting with people. You know what it's like to struggle. Lily nodded. And it's why I see so much potential in you, Jacob. You've built an empire, but there's more to life than success. You just have to let yourself believe it. Her words struck a chord. For the first time, Jacob saw Lily not just as someone fulfilling his mother's wish, but as a partner who truly understood him. As the days turned into nights, Jacob found himself opening up more to Lily. They shared late-night conversations about their hopes and fears, their dreams and regrets. Jacob began to see that vulnerability wasn't a weakness. It was a bridge to deeper connection. One night, as they sat on the balcony, Jacob took a deep breath and said, I've spent my whole life trying to prove myself, to be the man my father wanted me to be. But with you, I feel like I can just be myself. Lily smiled, her hand resting on his. And that's enough, Jacob. More than enough. In that moment, Jacob realized that his marriage to Lily had become more than a promise to his mother. It was a lifeline, a chance to rediscover himself and to find a happiness he hadn't known he was missing. The days passed with a bittersweet cadence in the Grant household. Eleanor's health continued to decline, her frailty becoming more apparent with each visit. Yet, she remained the emotional anchor for both Jacob and Lily. She often insisted they spend time together, subtly orchestrating moments that allowed their bond to grow deeper. Eleanor's bedroom became a sanctuary of shared stories and quiet reflections. On one particular afternoon, she asked both Jacob and Lily to sit with her. The golden hues of the setting sun bathed the room in a warm glow, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere. I've been thinking about the two of you, Eleanor began, her voice soft but resolute. And I want to tell you something important. Jacob leaned forward, concern etched on his face. Mom, you should rest. Eleanor shook her head, a faint smile gracing her lips. I've rested enough. This is something I need to say while I still can. Lily, sitting on the other side of the bed, reached out and held Eleanor's hand. We're listening, she said gently. Eleanor's gaze shifted between the two of them, her eyes filled with a profound mixture of love and wisdom. Jacob, you've spent so much of your life chasing success, trying to fill a void that no amount of money or power could ever truly fill. And Lily, you've given so much of yourself to others, even when you had so little to give. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. You two balance each other, Eleanor continued. Lily, you've shown Jacob what it means to live with kindness and humility. And Jacob, you've given Lily the stability and love she deserves. Together, you're better than you are apart. Jacob's throat tightened. Mom, I don't know if I've done enough to deserve this, to deserve her. Lily turned to him, her expression earnest. You don't have to be perfect, Jacob. None of us are. What matters is that you're trying. Eleanor smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. That's the thing about love. It's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to grow, to learn, and to give without expecting anything in return. As the weeks went on, Eleanor's condition worsened. Despite her weakening state, she remained a source of strength and wisdom for those around her. Her gentle encouragement pushed Jacob and Lily to confront their feelings and embrace the unique connection they had built. One evening, Eleanor requested a family dinner, an intimate affair with just the three of them. Jacob and Lily prepared the meal together, a quiet harmony settling between them as they worked side by side in the kitchen. Do you think she'll like this? Lily asked, holding up a tray of roasted vegetables. Jacob smiled, his expression softening. She'll love it. She always said your cooking reminded her of simpler times. As they carried the dishes to the dining room, Eleanor's face lit up with a rare burst of energy. She insisted on sitting at the head of the table, her frail hands clasped together in gratitude. This, she said, her voice trembling but full of warmth, is all I ever wanted, to see my son happy, surrounded by love. They ate in near silence, the weight of the moment palpable. It wasn't just a meal. It was a farewell of sorts, a final gathering that would become a cherished memory for years to come. A few days later, Eleanor passed away peacefully in her sleep. Her absence left a void in the Grant household, but her presence lingered in the hearts of those she had touched. Her funeral was a modest but heartfelt affair, attended by close friends and family, who spoke of her kindness and strength. For Jacob, the loss was a turning point. Standing by his mother's grave, with Lily's hand tightly clasped in his, he felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. Eleanor's final words to him echoed in his mind. Don't waste your life chasing shadows. Embrace the light that's right in front of you. As they walked away from the cemetery, Jacob turned to Lily, his eyes filled with determination. My mother saw something in us, something I wasn't ready to see before, but now I do. Lily, I want to honor her memory by making this marriage real, not for her, but for us. Lily stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding. Jacob, are you sure? This started as a promise, but it's more than that now, Jacob interrupted, his voice steady. You've changed me, Lily. You've shown me what really matters, and I don't want to lose that. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, but a smile broke through. I feel the same way, Jacob. Eleanor's passing became the catalyst for a new chapter in Jacob and Lily's lives. No longer bound by obligation, their relationship evolved into a genuine partnership built on mutual respect, trust, and love. In the months that followed Eleanor's passing, Jacob and Lily began to navigate the unfamiliar territory of their renewed relationship. What had started as a marriage of convenience, driven by a promise to fulfill Eleanor's dying wish, was now transforming into something authentic and deeply rooted. Jacob, once consumed by his business empire, started to reprioritize his life. The constant demands of his career no longer seemed as pressing, and he began delegating more responsibilities to his trusted team. This newfound balance allowed him to spend more time with Lily, fostering a bond that was growing stronger each day. One crisp morning, Jacob surprised Lily with a proposal of sorts. Not a romantic one, as they were already married, but a proposition to work on something meaningful together. I've been thinking, Jacob began as they sat on the veranda overlooking the sprawling Grant estate. We have resources, connections, and an opportunity to do something impactful. What if we started a foundation in my mother's name? Something that would carry on her legacy of kindness and compassion. Lily looked up from her cup of tea, her eyes wide with surprise. A foundation? What kind of work are you thinking about? Jacob smiled, his expression thoughtful. My mother always believed in helping those who couldn't help themselves. We could focus on initiatives that support single parents, provide scholarships, or even fund community projects. Lily's face lit up. That sounds incredible, Jacob. I'd love to be a part of that. You wouldn't just be a part of it, Jacob replied, his tone earnest. I want you to lead it with me. Your heart, your perspective, they're exactly what this foundation needs. Lily hesitated for a moment, overwhelmed by the idea. But I've never run something like that before. You're not just anything, Jacob interrupted gently. You're compassionate, smart, and resourceful. You've shown me how to see the world differently. I can't think of anyone better suited for this. Lily's cheeks flushed, a mixture of pride and nervousness bubbling inside her. All right, she said with a determined smile. Let's do it. The next few months were a whirlwind of planning, brainstorming, and setting the foundation's mission into motion. They named it the Eleanor Grant Foundation, a tribute to the woman whose vision and values had brought them together. Lily threw herself into the work, using her natural empathy and practicality to shape the foundation's goals. Jacob marveled at her ability to connect with people, whether it was speaking with a struggling single mother or brainstorming with the foundation's board members. Lily's sincerity shone through. She quickly became the heart of the organization, while Jacob used his business acumen to secure funding and partnerships. Despite the challenges of starting a new venture, the process brought Jacob and Lily closer. They began to see each other in new ways, appreciating the strengths and vulnerabilities they each brought to the table. Their days were filled with collaborative efforts, and their evenings often ended with quiet conversations about their dreams for the future. One evening, after a particularly long day at the foundation's office, they found themselves sitting together on the couch surrounded by paperwork. Jacob leaned back, watching Lily as she reviewed a proposal with furrowed brows. You know, he said, breaking the silence, I've never felt this fulfilled before. Lily looked up, her expression softening. Really? You've built an empire, Jacob. That's something most people only dream of. Jacob shook his head. The empire never made me feel this way. It was always about the next deal, the next milestone. But this, working with you, making a difference, it feels real, like I'm finally doing something that matters. Lily smiled, reaching out to squeeze his hand. You are, Jacob, and I feel the same way. Their work with the foundation wasn't without its challenges. There were disagreements over priorities, logistical hurdles, and moments of self-doubt. But through it all, Jacob and Lily learned to rely on each other, finding strength in their partnership. One day, during a heated debate over how to allocate funds for a new project, Jacob stopped mid-sentence, realizing how passionate Lily was about her stance. He couldn't help but smile. What? Lily asked, confused by his sudden change in demeanor. Nothing, Jacob said, shaking his head. I just love seeing you like this, fighting for what you believe in. Lily's frustration melted into a laugh. Well, someone has to keep you in check. And you do it so well, Jacob replied, grinning. All right, let's go with your plan. I trust you. As the foundation gained momentum, so did Jacob and Lily's relationship. They weren't just husband and wife anymore. They were true partners, building a life and a legacy together. Their journey, which had started as an obligation, had turned into a shared mission filled with love, respect, and purpose. Lily often thought back to the night Jacob first walked into the diner where she worked. She never could have imagined how much her life would change. And yet, here she was. Proof that sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. With the Eleanor Grant Foundation flourishing, Jacob and Lily had not only built something remarkable, but had also nurtured a partnership that became the cornerstone of their relationship. Yet, it wasn't just the professional collaboration that was changing Jacob. It was the way Lily brought light into his world, one selfless act at a time. One chilly evening, Jacob and Lily found themselves walking hand in hand through the bustling streets of the city. It was a rare break from their busy schedules, and the crisp air carried the aroma of roasted chestnuts and fresh pastries. They stopped at a small park, where a cluster of fairy lights illuminated the benches and trees. It's beautiful out tonight, Lily said, looking up at the stars visible beyond the city's glow. Jacob watched her, his heart swelling. She had a way of finding beauty in the simplest things, a quality that had softened his once hardened view of life. Not as beautiful as you, he replied, his voice low and genuine. Lily turned to him, her cheeks flushing in the cool air. You're getting better at this whole romance thing, she teased, but her smile betrayed how much the compliment meant to her. I have a good teacher, Jacob said, pulling her closer. You've taught me more than you realize, Lily. About life, about love. They sat on a bench, the world around them fading into the background. Lily leaned her head against Jacob's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence. For the first time in years, Jacob felt a sense of completeness. As time went on, their bond deepened in ways neither had anticipated. Jacob found himself drawn not just to Lily's kindness, but to her strength and resilience. She had faced struggles he couldn't imagine, yet she carried herself with grace and optimism. One evening, while they were preparing dinner together at home, Jacob couldn't help but bring up something that had been on his mind. Do you ever miss the simplicity of your old life? He asked, chopping vegetables as Lily stirred a pot on the stove. Lily paused, considering the question. Sometimes, she admitted, but I wouldn't trade what we have now for anything. It's not about simplicity or luxury, Jacob, it's about purpose. And with you, I've found mine. Jacob set down the knife, walking over to stand beside her. You've given me a purpose too, Lily. I didn't realize how empty my life was until you filled it. As their relationship grew, so did Jacob's understanding of what it meant to love someone unconditionally. He began to notice the small things, how Lily always made time for the people around her, how she remembered the names and stories of the foundation's beneficiaries, how she could turn even the most mundane moment into something special. On one particularly hectic day at the foundation, Jacob walked into Lily's office to find her surrounded by children from a newly funded community program. She was kneeling on the floor, laughing as she helped them build a miniature model of their dream neighborhood. Jacob stood in the doorway, watching her with awe. You're amazing, he said softly, and Lily looked up, her eyes shining. They're the amazing ones, she replied, gesturing to the kids. We're just giving them the tools to show the world. Jacob knelt beside her, joining in the activity. It was in moments like these that he realized just how much Lily had changed him. The man who once measured success by profits and acquisitions now found joy in shared laughter and acts of kindness. Their love story was not without its challenges. There were moments of doubt, miscommunication, and growing pains as they learned to navigate their new life together. But each challenge only strengthened their bond. They became each other's safe harbor, a team that weathered life's storms with unwavering support and understanding. One night, as they sat by the fireplace in the Grant estate, Jacob reached for Lily's hand. "Do you ever think about how we got here?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. "All the time," Lily said, her eyes meeting his. "It feels like a lifetime ago that you walked into that diner. I never imagined this is where we'd end up." "Neither did I," Jacob admitted, "but I'm so glad we did. You've shown me what it means to love, to live." Lily smiled, leaning in to kiss him gently. "And you've shown me that love can come from the most unexpected places." Their love blossomed not in grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but in the quiet, everyday moments, in shared meals, in laughter, in the way they supported each other's dreams. It was a love built on trust, respect, and an unshakable foundation of friendship. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, Jacob and Lily sat together, content in the knowledge that they had found something truly extraordinary. Their journey, though unexpected, had led them to a love that was as genuine as it was transformative. Years passed, and the love between Jacob and Lily continued to deepen. Their journey, which had begun as a temporary arrangement to fulfill a dying mother's wish, had blossomed into a profound partnership built on trust, compassion, and unwavering support. The Eleanor Grant Foundation had grown exponentially, becoming a beacon of hope for countless individuals. Lily's hands-on approach and Jacob's strategic vision proved to be a perfect combination. Together, they had created programs that supported education, mental health, and job training, transforming lives across the country. One sunny afternoon, Jacob and Lily stood on a stage at a gala event hosted by the foundation. The room was filled with supporters, beneficiaries, and friends who had come together to celebrate the foundation's 10th anniversary. Jacob stepped up to the microphone, his voice steady but emotional. "When we started this journey, I never imagined how much it would change my life. What began as a way to honor my mother's legacy turned into something far greater. Thanks to Lily." He turned to his wife, his eyes filled with admiration. "Lily has taught me the true meaning of compassion, of giving without expecting anything in return. She is the heart of this foundation, and the reason it continues to thrive." The crowd erupted in applause as Lily joined Jacob at the microphone. "This foundation is a reflection of all of us," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "It's proof that when we come together, we can create real change. Jacob and I are honored to be part of this journey, and we thank each and every one of you for believing in our mission." After the event, Jacob and Lily walked through the gardens of the venue, reflecting on how far they had come. The stars above shone brightly, mirroring the sense of hope and accomplishment in their hearts. "Can you believe it's been 10 years?" Jacob asked, his voice soft as they strolled hand in hand. Lily smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "It feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once, but more than that, I can't believe how much we've grown together." Jacob stopped walking and turned to face her. "You've changed me, Lily. You've made me a better man, and for that, I will always be grateful." Lily's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she cupped his face in her hands. "And you've shown me what it means to dream bigger, to believe in the impossible. Together, we've created something beautiful." As their lives continued to intertwine, Jacob and Lily's love became a source of inspiration for everyone around them. They were not just partners in marriage, but also in life's mission to make the world a kinder, better place. One evening, while sitting on the porch of their home, Jacob reflected on the path that had brought them here. "Do you ever think about what my mom would say if she saw us now?" he asked, his voice tinged with emotion. Lily reached for his hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "I think she'd be proud, Jacob. Proud of the man you've become and of the life we've built together." Jacob nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "She was right, you know. She always said love could heal even the deepest wounds. And she was right. You've healed me, Lily. And you've healed me," Lily replied, her voice soft but unwavering. "We've healed each other." In the years that followed, Jacob and Lily's story became a testament to the power of love, redemption, and transformation. They continued to grow their foundation, support each other's dreams, and cherish the life they had built together. When the time came for them to pass on the torch of the Eleanor Grant Foundation, they did so with the knowledge that their work had created a lasting legacy. But more than that, they knew they had found something far greater, a love that defied expectations and proved that even the most unlikely beginnings could lead to the happiest of endings. As they stood together, watching the next generation take over the foundation, Jacob leaned close to Lily and whispered, "You've changed my life forever, Lily, and for that, I will always be grateful." "And you've changed mine," Lily replied, smiling through tears. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Their story, one of unexpected love and boundless transformation, remained a beacon of hope, a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from the most unexpected places. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.